Are you ready, Christina?
We're using the phone.
Yes.
Okay, everybody, thank you very much and welcome to Sandwich Tollbridge Fund Museum and Archive Committee. Today on the 24th of April 2024. Item number 1 is apologies for absence received. Please, Town Clerk.
Thank you, Chair. We have the apologies from Councillor William Fortescue, travel commitment, and Councillor Dean Marie, a work commitment.
Thank you very much. And then item number 2 is declarations of interest, and this is to receive any declarations of disclosable pecuniary interests from members in respect of the business to be transacted on the agenda this evening. Do we have any declarations of interest at all? That's a nil return.
I have a declaration of interest. I have a declaration but unable to access. I don't know quite how to. It shows that the internet is working, but it says Safari can't open page. So I don't know quite what to do. Okay, have you got a...
Did you have any declarations of interest?
No.
That's a nil return in Town Clerk. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
I'll try and go slower so that you can get your device sorted out if possible. It was spasmodic because I had difficulty
It's
looking.
always troublesome in this room.
I think it could be.
So we've got a booster in here.
Yeah.
Up on that.
I know.
Item number 3 is minutes of the Museum and Archives Committee, and this is to receive and approve the minutes of the Museum and Archive Committee held on the 31st of January 2024, and to consider any matters arising from those minutes that are not covered elsewhere in this agenda. Did anybody have any? Did you have any? Did you know if you had any to raise?
I did look, but
All right.
I looked a little while ago, but
Did anybody else have any items to raise on the previous minutes from January? Councillor Franklin? You okay? Oh, that's okay. Oh, that's good. Okay, well, I'm happy to propose those minutes if somebody would second that. Councillor Franklin second that. And all those in favour of those minutes, please show.
Thank you. Okay.
It says it's connected. Have a log go and see if that it's refreshed a few times. If not, you can have one. It's double-sided.
So we're just checking the previous minutes now. Just if whether or not you were in favour of those at all.
yes.
Oh, super.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Thank you.
Okay, that's been passed, that item there. Okay, item number 4 is public participation, and this is a 20-minute session is set aside for members of the public to make representations at this meeting in respect of the business on the agenda. Individual representation should not exceed 5 minutes. Written notice of the desire to exercise the right to speak together with the topic to be addressed must be given to the Town Clerk prior to noon of the day of the meeting. Do we have any public participation?
No requests.
No requests. Thank you very much. Then item number 5 is the update on museum operations. Members are to receive a report regarding museum operations
Should be right.
from the museum coordinator, and this is attachment number 1, and you may find attachment number 1 is actually under your agenda if you're on an electronic device. So we can go through this item by item if you wanted to to just check on things. So item number 1 on attachment 1 are the visitor figures. Oh, beg your pardon. Museum coordinator, did you want to give a verbal report or mention anything beforehand?
I think everything's in there.
In there? Well,
So
that's
I'm happy
excellent.
to add things as we go.
Oh,
if
that's
necessary.
super. You're welcome to share my screen if you need to.
I pushed the wrong button, Chair. I did have it.
It's gone to delete again. Yeah. So item number 1 are the visitor figures, and I was very pleased with the visitor figures. I thought this was quite a large increase, and I think that this, you know, just shows how good the museum is doing, and in particular how good our museum volunteers are, you know, at welcoming people and showing people around and doing things.
Particularly those who work on a Sunday afternoon, I'll just throw that in.
I wouldn't know who that would be, so you're obviously talking about Councillor Morehouse now.
Indeed.
We're sitting drinking tea when I go in.
So I'm very pleased about those, and it was just upsetting. Obviously we lost some figures in November and December. I'll just come to you in a minute, Councillor Anderson. I was just going to ask the town clerk whether in this report it did say about a SharePoint folder needing creation for the recording of figures. Is that correct?
It's just that it was sort of, as we were sorting out our IT, so it wasn't something that could be done when I thought of it, but it would make things much easier if the spreadsheet that the volunteers access is on the desktop of the computer, so it's very easy to be accessible, but it could be a shortcut and it could be stored in a SharePoint, and then I can access it from my laptop.
Indeed.
Rather than at the moment I have to go to the computer and collect that information.
Yeah.
But if I could access it from my laptop, then I could more frequently collect that information and just keep an eye that everything's
That would be most useful.
and it also means any other information that might be useful can be available to them.
Captured as well. Indeed. Is that possible, Town Clerk, that
Yes,
we could set
that
that up?
Yes.
Well, that's good news then. That's excellent news. And then I was going to, Councillor Anderson, would you like to raise any
Yeah,
points?
I was wondering if it might be possible to distinguish whether or not temporary exhibitions do actually increase numbers from this data. Is it possible to do that?
Yes, I can. I think the last time there was an agenda, right? I think, well, not last time, last time I gave figures, which was the first meeting in November, I think I flagged some of the things that had happened that might have affected some of the data, or it might have been social media, but I can definitely look through the last, I can do it for the previous year as well, and just have a look and see the increases. I can add that in as a notes column.
Yeah, I
on
mean,
the
it would
table.
be interesting to see whether we can detect an impact of temporary exhibitions, and also I've noticed that you do post on Facebook, and whether you could perhaps introduce some idea. I mean, it's very difficult to talk about cause and effect, but it would be quite interesting to see whether advertising on Facebook makes any difference.
Yes, so in terms of, I can go through and collect the data from social media to see what increases we've had. But I can have a look at that in comparison to visitor numbers as well, but it's quite hard to
Yes, I agree. I mean, I think
you
it
know,
might be very
make
difficult.
that relationship between the figures work. It does, temporary exhibitions do help me with creating content because the content has to be created for the exhibition, and then there's images and there's text available because I've already had to write it for that purpose. Doing social media posts generally, which I do try to do but I haven't done as many recently, takes a lot of work because it's coming up with the idea and then locating an image which has to be be edited, and then obviously writing and researching. But yeah, I can have a look into that, if we can figure out a way of even putting the numbers next to each other, so you can see a possible relationship. I'm not sure
Yes.
how.
I mean, if we had dates of temporary exhibitions, you know, against the month, as it were, and then, you know, if there's a big jump, I mean, for example, there seems to have been a big jump in January.
There was
511, and again in
Yeah.
March 503, and also in April, and maybe it was a temporary exhibition. I mean, it would be good
Yeah.
to be able to demonstrate
Yeah,
that.
in January it was. It was because we were involved in the Richard III event,
Right.
so the talk, and because we had the opportunity to get the letter from Kent Archives, which lots of people were quite interested in. So I think that's probably where a lot of it has come from, but I have noticed that I think our normal figures are higher. I was
Yes.
saying
Yes,
just
clearly
today,
the
it
average has gone
seems
up.
that the kind of the daily average looks higher,
Yes.
just from having a look at the numbers. I haven't
Yeah.
done any calculations, but and I think that might be partly related to just having been open a bit longer. Obviously it's tourism and things like that as well, but I do think maybe we were sort of finding our feet in 2022. Last year we were open for a full year, which we haven't been for quite a while. So I think that's probably why.
Yes, I was going to say temporary exhibition. I thought the Wheels Through Time that we had all that visit from other museums are fantastic, wasn't we? Had the thought,
Indeed,
and
yes.
Lord Lieutenant come, doesn't she? She was really interesting. So that was the and I say the Richard III, and also the one about the the camp there. That brought people in as well.
Yes, it did, but it doesn't show up in the data.
No,
That's
no,
what's
very
interesting.
difficult. Which is
Yeah,
Which-
there's a consequence.
yeah.
And can I ask the museum coordinators, have you got whatever means you need to actually collect the data? I don't know if you use a clicker or a tally system or something. When I was there, it was just a tally system. Is that correct? Yeah, 5-bar gate.
They get
Did you need any other help or assistance with if you need any devices or anything for?
well, I have thought about whether it would be useful to have a counter on the door or somewhere. I'm not sure exactly where it would be positioned. It does mean, and other organisations I think do this, it means that it's not necessarily visitors, but it's visits.
That's
So if the volunteers walk in, they would
that's
get
it. They
counted.
get counted as well, unfortunately.
But I do know that I've worked in a place that has done that before, and that is just how it is. So
Yeah.
the numbers might look slightly higher than they actually are.
Yeah.
It would be a kind of system to fall back on if there was an issue with the computer.
Yeah.
So it might be useful to look into that and see what the cost,
Yeah,
if it was
possibly.
doable, and what the cost
Yeah,
would be.
possibly if you could look into that. I was just thinking,
Yeah.
because the museum volunteers have got so much to do already, that
It would,
sort of
yeah.
counting the visitors as well.
I think that, I mean, there's normally two of us there. One of us
Indeed.
does the counting of the visitors and the other one introduces the visitor to the museum, sort of gives them a brief overview. So I'm personally not sure how useful that would be, but you know.
It would be, I mean, when we have had, we did lose a fair amount of data, and I don't know how, but I suspect it was something to do with saving of the spreadsheet, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And that's the main issue, that's the kind of concern, I think. So it would be a backup in that sense, and I suppose when it's very busy, if someone's in the courtroom, I know that sometimes on a Saturday, if someone's already in the courtroom and then the other volunteer, they had an issue I think recently where I asked if they had put, I don't know, sometimes I come and see how things are, and I had said, oh, did you put those visitors in? And they were like, no, because I was talking to someone and then 5 people came in, and that sort of situation, which is fine as long as you remember how many people come in.
Exactly, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So a laser might be a backup. It depends how expensive it is. Yeah, it's just when.
And from my previous stint in the museum, if you did get like a coach come in and you had a coach load of visitors, it was very difficult because they all sort of bunch up. It's very difficult to count the number of heads of people that are there. So if you do get a large number of people, you're going, I think, well, that's roughly 20, but it could have been 16 or it could have been 25. So perhaps that could be
No,
useful.
Chair, I was just going to say, I've got, is it a Thursday? There seems to be a load of students coming from the foreign language school at
They
Broadstairs.
do indeed.
And
I've seen them.
I've met students from Ecuador, was it Sicily last week? And also the week before it was Thailand, so I wonder whether we ought to have an atlas and they pinpoint where they're from a little bit. But it's amazing, all around the world, I know it's a language school, but he's bringing them into Sandwich every week. And then, of course, then they go back, hopefully they come back with their parents at some time. Yeah, so it's good, isn't
We
it?
actually there was a language school, it's from Canterbury, that's contacted me about regular visits in July actually, every Friday. They're going to bring quite a few students, so it's very helpful.
That's good, isn't it?
Oh, that's
Very
good.
interested.
Thank you for that. So, and then item number 2 on this item is donations and income, and this shows the donations. So that is the only aspect I had was that was very good. It was good that the income had been consistent, and if not, it had actually appreciated. I think by 2,500. So which is really good. But obviously, with donations, obviously it can fluctuate quite a bit because it's on people's preference and economy and things like that. And of course, in this current climate at the moment, we've got very cold weather during what could be quite a busy tourist season. So these things aren't always easy to gauge or maintain, I think. So did anybody have any questions or queries on the donations and income at all? Is there? No? Okay, that's good, thank you. And then there was item number 3 was items raised on past agendas. It was hoped that the full plan draft would be prepared in time for this meeting, but that's not quite available just yet. And some items included on past committee agendas are no longer priorities, and this includes recruitment for co-opted committee members, a report on items on loan to the museum, and the Jewish tour in learning programme. So those items will just be delayed until a later time to pick those up. Councillor Anderson.
Thank you. I was just wondering why these items are no longer priorities. Obviously I do a tour, a Jewish tour every year, and I will continue to do so when the Association of Jewish Refugees comes every year. And I will continue to do so as long as I can. So I just wondered, because that was picked up by the student, wasn't it? There was a report from the student and about the parts of Sandwich history that needed to be highlighted, and I think we got the Jewish bit into that list,
So
and now it seems to have been dropped.
She did a lot of work on a couple of different tours of the town, but the focus was on the younger years, from my memory, so primary school students, and they don't learn about the Second World War until secondary school.
Yeah, that's right.
So it just wasn't a priority at this time, partly also because the learning programme is not going to be implemented soon anyway. But what I did basically was I looked through the past agendas from the committee, and anything that was agreed but didn't have a deadline was on that list. So they're not selected things that I've said we're not doing them. It's just a case of these things are not things that they're just not going to fit into the forward plan anytime soon, and that's a capacity issue more than anything. But yeah, when we get to secondary school related learning, obviously it's definitely relevant.
Yes,
It just
absolutely.
wasn't for that
From the
work she had
curriculum.
done, that's all.
Yes.
Um,
Okay, well, it would be helpful when we do get to secondary school learning, because it is, is just part of the curriculum, and this is Sandwich's Holocaust story. The other question I had was about recruitment for co-opted committee members. And there are people around in Sandwich whom I think would be helpful. I mean, it just so happens at the moment we've got 2 councillors who are museum volunteers, but that need not be the case forever. I mean, it's just that they happen to be very active people in the community, so they're volunteers and councillors. But I think it would be helpful to have, for example, a representative of the museum volunteers, because people that, who are delivering the service, as it were, often have very good ideas. And similarly, there are people living in Sandwich who have been museum curators throughout their careers, or artists. And again, I think that would be helpful if those sorts of people could be helped.
Yep, so the reason again for that being there is because the plan is to, or was agreed, that we would recruit specifically in relation to the activities of the museum, and the approval was in relation to, I believe, finances and learning, which again, learning is not the progress, so it's not relevant to recruit someone for the committee that has that knowledge, because it's not going to be in the forward plan. So it's not that we will not recruit anyone, it's that we need to look at what would be helpful within planning. And probably, I think we talked about recruiting them for a specific amount of time that's relevant to the plan.
That's right.
So again, that's why it's just that those things are not going to happen as yet. That's all.
And then item number 4 was research inquiries, and this was sort of stating about there's a slight pause in new inquiries till the end of May due to capacity. The only matter I was going to bring up, it says currently there is no set procedure in place capturing data on how many research inquiries are received, and I just wondered if that was something that either myself or the town clerk can help with, or is it something that we need to set up for that?
Yeah, so I have an idea of how that could work. I mean, at the moment I can check my inbox for inquiries, so that's how I have the figures. I can figure those out. But originally I thought we would have an inquiry form, which I would like to have anyway for the VIC, for people going in there or the other end of the building, and the volunteers as well, probably. So that was kind of a way to capture that information, and then because it's useful, I think, for collections history to know what objects have been looked at. Even if, for example, we had an object that was viewed quite a lot of times from a conservation point of view, we might think actually we don't want to get it out as many times as we have, or there's various other reasons, obviously. So it is important to keep that information. It's just the best way. I think filling out paperwork is helpful, because I figured if we had an email, then whoever received the email, well, if it came to me, I would still fill out the paperwork with the information, so it was there. But I'm mindful of just creating lots of paper work and think. I mean, we will have a lot of, there's a lot of procedures in the museum that require signing various pieces of paper, especially for the collections, and I'm just wary of needing to, accruing a lot of paper that we then have to store, and it's not very environmentally friendly, and so it's just figuring out that. I might have trialled having a spreadsheet for them which I
Sounds
double
ideal,
check.
yeah, would that be
It's,
possible?
yeah, again, the real thing is, and this is an issue with a lot of the procedures that we have to follow, is really having the capacity to do them. And there's so many different things, bits of data that need to be collected,
Of course.
procedures for managing the collection that have to be followed that I don't manage to do them all. I think if I did, I would not have a lot of time to do
Of course
a
not,
lot
no.
else.
No.
So that's really the problem.
Perhaps if you could just trial something
Yeah,
that would
I'll
give us
check.
an idea of the number that come in, and perhaps the subject areas, just sort of very basic information, and just asking perhaps the subject areas, and it could give us some data as to the inquiries, you know, what
Yeah.
are the majority of
I
them.
mean, I can tell you most of them are housing
Oh, I see.
related.
Oh,
Either there's an issue with housing and they need some information, or they've just moved to town and they'd like to know more about their house.
I see, of course.
Those are the main ones, I think. But yeah, I can collect that
Thank you
information.
very much. Councillor Ripley, did you
Just
have a
a
question?
very brief comment here that I was speaking to a resident today who put in a research request, and she was very impressed about how it was responded to by me.
Excellent. That's excellent news, isn't it? That's fantastic. That's good feedback. Thank you
Chair,
very much. Oh,
I just need
indeed.
to say, Millie did have a lot of support from Linda, didn't she?
Yeah.
So I mean, she must be missing Linda a lot, I should imagine.
Oh, indeed. Yeah,
So
of
I just
course.
wonder if there's anyone that's sort of similar to Linda that could, you know, assist Millie a little bit, especially on some of the paperwork or some of the research stuff. Because
Definitely.
Linda knew so much, didn't she?
That's right. Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
So, you know,
that's true. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would
you need more
Like-
assistance, I think.
eventually to have some sort of collections research volunteers, but I don't feel like it's fair at this stage because the collection is not very easy to, because if we don't have a very big inventory, it's not very easy to locate items, so it's quite hard and it takes a lot of time. A lot of it's in the attic, which they can't access. So I would like that, but I don't want to bring people on when it's not.
No. I think this was
easy
just
for them.
discussed before.
Just have to monitor it, won't we, really?
Yeah.
So when she really needs it, that we'll be there to support her.
Because there's a large number. I was at the History Society the other evening, and there's quite a large number of them that would like to re-volunteer to assist the museum coordinator with the collection. But I did reiterate what the museum coordinator had said, that at this current time that we won't be taking on anybody. Obviously the museum coordinator we'll see has got quite a lot more work to do, so it's training up
That's right.
new volunteers. Thank you very much for that. And item number 5 is the bit that we've just really been discussing, which is volunteers. And it said that one more volunteer is required. This is for the museum. One more regular slot.
What day is that? What day is that, Jim?
It's Thursday morning.
I could do that, Bill. I did ask the wife.
Oh, excellent. Oh,
Is that, was that, to 1 o'clock, isn't it?
Yeah,
10 till
1.
Yeah, I'll fit that in.
Oh, that's excellent. Oh, well done. Oh, that's good.
Send you an email.
Oh, we've solved that. Oh, that's good news.
Got the
And,
wife's permission.
We've gained 2 new ad hoc volunteers, so there's currently 27 volunteers, although they're not all active. 1 college student volunteering on a regular basis, and 1 DOV student who's volunteering for 3 months. So, did anybody? Oh,
Well, this is a side issue, but I am aware that it's terribly cold for the volunteers.
Yes.
And, you know, that may put off some people, particularly older people. And I really do think we need to think about having a door, rather like the ones at the waiting room, a glass door, so it doesn't look closed when the museum's properly contained. But because at the moment, at the weekend, if it is cold, of course that wooden door is, you know, just ajar or even closed, because it's so uncomfortable for the volunteers if it's open. So I think if we could find the money for a beautiful glass door, I know you're going to say it's a heritage building and you can't muck about
No,
with it.
I've
No.
actually sent emails already to Dover District to ask for their thoughts on that. I believe it was an idea quite a long time ago, and I would really like to be able to do it. I did contact a company as well, I need to chase them again because they haven't been in touch with me. But it's something I would like to do. I'm very aware of it, and I completely agree. We really need a company to come and have a look because there's various things, you know, it needs probably to be power assisted, or something to be, you know, to make it accessible, and it's also the space as well, because it would have to be internal because of the way, and the door opens inside, so it has to be enough space for the door to fit in. There's quite a few things, but I definitely want to look into it.
Thank you.
And of course, this was undertaken, wasn't it, Councillor Franklin and I know, on St Peter's Church.
Yes.
One of the previous councillors that used to be on this council, there was a small group, and they said the same thing about St Peter's Church,
Yes.
was that St Peter's Church before it had the operation that it's got there now, it used to have the fire tenders in there, and it used to have an organ in there,
Yes.
and of course the same thing there with St Peter's Church. If the doors were shut, you know, there was nobody thought of going in, and if the doors were open, then whoever was in there was even colder. So this was undertaken on St Peter's Church, so it's a very good
And
point
it's
to
worked
raise.
very well. I think.
It
looks
has.
absolutely beautiful.
Right.
I think the most,
Sorry.
I was just going to say, I think they most probably have to do a new door frame, and the door would open outwards that way, then you could have an interior glass door.
Yeah.
That would be.
If the door opened to the right, you know, outwards, you could lock it back, and then you could have a nice glass door inside that went that way.
I do agree. I think in the past someone asked if that was possible, but it would again, it's permission because of the list, the building being listed. So
Yeah, but once it was shut, it'd still look the same, wouldn't it? You know what I mean? It wouldn't affect the exterior of the door of the building at all, would it?
No, that's
This is only the modern bit, 2000, was it 1918? So it's not the old bit.
no.
is there perhaps I can send an email to ask a contact of who was involved in St Peter's, just I could see what company they
Yeah, I'm not quite sure, unfortunately. I don't know if Councillor Franklin knows, because the councillor that did it has now passed away, unfortunately.
Was it in a council meeting?
No, it was, I think it was Friends of St Peter's,
Yeah.
That's
That's
very
fine.
long time.
and yeah, that was a long time ago, and the gentleman was on the council here, but he's,
There must be specialist firms that do that.
To do that.
Yeah, I've
Because
only
it must
come
be a
across
problem
a
there.
couple,
Yeah.
but I will
Okay.
do some research to see if I can find
thank
one.
you for that, that's excellent there. So, and item number 6 is collections management, and it's just to say that it's I believe that 6,300 items have been entered into the inventory, 83 boxes, that seems like quite a lot, been repacked. It's slowed down recently because of focusing on documents. Currently the majority of the clock room in the attic has been cleared, and as has room 3, all boxes containing housing documents have been moved into the new store, as well as most of the photographic collection, and a small proportion of the rolled collection, and approximately half of the frame collection. So that's a lot of hard work that's been undertaken there. Anybody have any queries on the
I looked at the website, the new website, and of course there are photos, and there's a photo of the archives, which I have to say, it looks miserable. Looks dark and empty and dusty and
Is it the attic?
in the attic.
Yeah.
And I think if somehow, if we could have a photo of the collection, you know, in the smart new shelving, that would be rather better. That's an insight.
Yeah, I've got to do a lot of work on the website still, but I've just moved it, but because of capacity issues, there's no way I can commit to anything this month. But next month, that is something I've got on my list of priorities. But yeah, so at the moment we just had to get it launched, and there are things that need reviewing, refreshing, you know,
Yeah, I think I've
updating.
got new photos.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, brilliant. That would be
It's
good.
hard to imagine in the days of the borough, that was offices out there for the borough engineer and the surveyor and everything.
Yeah.
But I was going to say, when Woody it is cleared out, that big void up there, will it need sort of insulation for warmth and things like that? Because it must be, at the moment, even though it's paper and that,
Exactly.
are we losing heat through the roof? That's what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
Oh, indeed. Yeah, we could have it assessed.
Yes.
Perhaps
It's
get
a
Dover
massive
District
area,
Council.
isn't it?
I mean, if we have, hopefully, he says with fingers crossed, our assets manager
Yeah.
officer in
Yeah.
by that stage, that is one of the duties that the asset officer
Mm.
would undertake. So, and then they could liaise with Dover District Council as to what can be done.
Insulation.
But obviously, it can't be a functioning office or area that people can inhabit, because of course of the fire access from there is not adequate. So,
Yeah,
but
make
we
it
can
all-
insulate it, and
Yes, we must.
yeah,
We must.
indeed.
We must keep this building.
building and so on. And then item 6.1, reference library, basically to note that as of the beginning of April, over 1,000 items have been listed and moved to the new store, and when the reference library inventory is complete, it's likely that collections review will take place of the library collection. 6.2, accession registers, and it's to say that they need to be digitalised when time allows. This has been worked on, approximately 50 pages still to be entered across the two books, and the data will then need to be studied once this is complete due to inconsistencies. Item number 7 is temporary exhibitions. So there's plans to develop larger temporary exhibitions this year, although these may be subject to change. And of course we've got the 80th anniversary of D-Day, which will be coming up in June, and past mayors and traditions of the town, which will be coincide with the Speakers' Day as well. Councillor Ripley.
Yes, where are the temporary exhibitions likely to be held? Because at one stage we were talking about opening up that room at the end of the, whatever it's called, at the end of the museum. And it seems a shame to put exhibitions in the museum itself, because it detracts from the other stuff.
I've got a report coming to STC on Monday about the very subject.
That's good news.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's excellent.
Oh, Chair, I was going to say it's an important year for this month because it's 50 years of Sandwich Town Council.
It is indeed.
So I wonder whether, I don't know whether a temporary exhibition of all we've achieved over the years, or what the borough council used to be like.
That's right.
I think they're working on the D-Day one at the moment.
Yeah,
So it's just
they got a year.
a capacity.
Because Faversham's doing mugs and everything, aren't they?
Yeah.
Doing celebration mugs.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah. So I noted that Dover District Council were toning theirs down, weren't
They
they?
all too.
I asked about their celebrations and
Oh yeah,
exhibitions, and they said they were keeping it very low key.
go for a snack or something.
Indeed, that's correct, yeah. So. And then we had maintenance and signage. It was just to report that the museum wall is in the same state, and obviously it can be addressed when the wall's dried out further, hopefully when the warmer weather comes. And also there was some issues to do with signage, particularly to have a higher up sign that can be seen from further away. And the metal sign outside the museum has a temporary sign in it currently. But there's a plan for an acrylic or metal board that can be fitted into the sign, which will make it waterproof. So, Councillor Ripley.
Yes, I think, to be honest, when you walk into the forecourt, the museum looks very gloomy from the outside. There's nothing to attract the eye, and we've said this on many occasions about having a bright red banner or something like that that would focus, because a lot of people walk straight past it without, you know, they don't even do a double take. If we're talking about the, whatever you call it, that hideous metal thing outside the door, whatever it's called, yeah, most of the people, and I know this is only on a Sunday afternoon, but most of the visitors that come in have one question in particular. How has the name sandwich come about? Which come first, you know, the food or the name? And that is asked on a very regular basis. And I wonder whether it might not be worth considering a sign in the metal thing, a poster, showing the Earl of Sandwich and just giving a brief description, but in quite bright colours that would attract the eye. And it would also attract kids, I think, because they would love something like that. You know, it's all a bit dour at the moment, and it needs livening up, I think, to attract more people.
Yes.
Yeah, I think inside exhibits, because we did used to have a lot of children do different weights, you know, like lead, aluminium, so, you know, they weighed about, say, £1. The children could see what the different things were here. And there's other little things for children to get involved with as well. Well, they do their quiz, I think, when they go around now, don't they, as well, to get the children.
But I certainly think it needs brightening up.
Right.
Everything needs to be more eye-catching.
I think that is the metal thing being addressed. Something's going in there so that we can put signs up. There's like colourful signs.
So the plan, or my thought is, although that is a good idea, which I hadn't thought of, so perhaps I could combine it with my thought that I had anyway. My thought was to have a sign. It would have an image on it and obviously colourful writing that was printed on something weatherproof that can go in there. The first thought was the opening information and I know we have that up, but and information about temporary exhibitions that would be, so my thought was it would be a full panel with an image on the bottom that fills that, and then information above, and then a half panel that could go in that would note the temporary exhibition space, and then probably have a section that where we could make laminated information about as the exhibitions change that could be added to that to talk about what's actually on. But I do like your idea, so perhaps we do opening times or something, or information, something like that. But then some other information below it, I'm not sure.
Yeah, sure.
Can I suggest, I think it needs something eye-catching.
Yeah.
Information can be perhaps inside or at a smaller amount, but it needs something that really focuses the eye from a distance. And too much information on the poster won't be seen from a distance.
No, it wouldn't be a lot of information anyway. It would be something main and, you know, something quite clear and bright, and then the information would be smaller if you approached it. But I will think about how we might design it when we get to it, because I do like your idea. I'm sure we've got a portrait of the sandwich.
Yes, I'd like to just go back to this point about the sandwich and sandwich. I mean, I absolutely take your point. I mean, I haven't had the experience of people saying what's the connection, but I'm totally confident that happens all the time. And I'm sure people come to Sandwich, some people come to Sandwich because of its name, and they're intrigued by the fact that the word sandwich is now universal, it's global. And here we are with a little town called Sandwich. So I really feel strongly and agree strongly with Councillor Ripple's point that we need to do something about that. And the museum is the right place. And somehow we need to think through what we do. I mean, I'm not suggesting a giant sandwich on the forecourt, but or maybe, you know, for a week, a year or something. I mean, something that satisfies that desire to see what the connection is.
Couldn't we have a sort of mannequin that could go outside the door, you know, like a suit of armour or something there, you know, a figure, you know, that sort of walk, you know, that could still
Inventing
outside.
the sandwich.
Eating a sandwich.
Well, no, just a figure though, to be outside the door.
Councillor Black.
Yeah. We seem to be still talking about a text-based era.
Yeah.
A lot of this information can be quite simply on a QR code. You don't, you know, and you can then concentrate on having a really good image, whatever that image is, and put the other bits on the QR. Because whilst we're not going to recognise at least 15% of the population don't use smartphones, that does leave us 85% that do.
Yeah.
And come on, folks, let's move it into that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We're going 21st century, Council.
Right?
You're going 21st century.
Well, that's a valuable concept, you know. It's a part of your 19th, aren't they?
Yeah, but that's what my son keeps saying about QR on the houses and things, you know.
Yeah.
I would like to add to Ian's point, because I've just come back from France. We were visiting little towns about the size of Sandwich with beautiful medieval calls, and on every building of interest there was a QR code. And in some of those little towns, you got, if you did the scan and everything, you got through to a page in French and a page in English. And you know, I really do think, I mean, I don't know how much this costs. It looks like cheap technology. I don't know.
Well, at that point, we'll leave that with the museum coordinator to investigate, if that's okay. So, if everybody's happy with attachment 1, we're just to note the report. Is everybody happy with that? I'll propose that.
Yeah.
Everybody in favour? That's good. Thank you very much. And then item number 6 is the forward plan. This is members to receive a report regarding the museum's forward plan. And this is attachment number 2. Did anybody have any comments on the forward plan, or does the museum coordinator have any matters to raise on the forward plan at all? Councillor Black.
Well, I was interested in the 3 different audiences and some of the responses. I was intrigued to see that someone wanted more artefacts on show that were in the old museum, but you run the risk of that being extremely cluttered. I think that one of the things that this has done is reduce the clutter. There's still a lot in there, a tremendous amount there, and obviously you want to recycle things. The comment about the front door closed we've talked about, and it really is something that goes back years when I first started being a volunteer. It is absolutely perishing in the winter, and I really wonder if someone took a thermometer in, we would be in breach of the regulations, and that's a serious matter. So I think that's that on the, this is the first feedback was residents. The other feedbacks on trustees, I think I know who the author of this one is, but bringing the pubs back is going to be quite the storage issue. Although I like the idea of, can we do all dress up in vintage fire uniforms and charge around the town at certain times. Now I wonder who the author of that might be. It's serious because they're in Dover. It's a pretty good transport museum, but
You did promise to bring them back at one time.
yes, I know.
Yeah.
But where on earth would you put them?
Yeah. Before they went to Dover, it was queried, you know, where they would go, and it was only because the CCT wanted the St Peter's Church back. So we were in a dilemma. What do we do with them? We only had a matter of months, didn't we, Councillor Franklin, to move them out, and quite luckily Dover Transport Museum said that they would accommodate the fire tenders on an agreement that it was just a temporary loan, and as soon as we had somewhere to put them, I think that was how many years ago was that, Councillor Franklin?
I mean, we spent £6,000 on 4 wheels, didn't we, to get them to the wheelwright? And now the cheeky Dover Museum, they use them, you know, they take, they shouldn't be doing the static display. And 2 of the things actually and the Kent Fire Brigade Museum at Maidstone, for some reason they closed that. So but it'd be nice to bring them back to Sandwich at some time.
On a more serious matter though, on the volunteer survey, I was a little bit surprised. Could you tell us a little bit more about item 1, about interference by STC? What's that about?
I don't know. That is a comment. They're anonymous. So I don't know who has written it.
I've got a good idea who it is.
But it's an example of, I think, needing to build the relationship between the volunteers and the council.
A two-way relationship.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I just think that's the thing. I think it is perhaps it's difficult. I don't know if you are a resident in the town. I think people have a problem separating their kind of perhaps political views from what we're aiming for, which is to do the best for the museum. Obviously, when we're in that capacity, so perhaps that is what's fueled that. I'm not sure. I don't know who wrote it. It is anonymous, but I do think that it would be useful to think about shared goals with everybody involved in the museum.
Yes, it is a bit of a worrying comment, and I think possibly the ill-advised one and not thought through. That's the whole point about if you don't ask people their views, you never get to the bottom of certain things. But I was a little bit surprised. That's all the points I've got on the surveys.
Thank you very much. Did anybody else have any other points at all? There's obviously item number 4 is about capacity being very limited in the museum, and say to Councillor Franklin that the option to develop new voluntary roles has been considered, but the museum coordinator's time is still required to manage and supervise these roles. And of course improvements as referenced above need to be made, so we've really all got to be mindful there is only one museum coordinator, and obviously the amount of work that is shown in the forward plan can't be achieved unless we let her get on with it, really. So.
When they're talking about the, I'm not quite sure if it's the same place as you or not. Further down, the thing is, in 1926 they did a big pageant through the town celebrating, because the first mayor was 1226, so I think we should plan 2026 to have a big pageant through the town and get all the schools and different groups and different periods through, through. We've got time to make the costumes up, and perhaps with there might be some funding through that we could help fund it, help pay for some of the material. So I think we should have is it 800 years? Is it 1226? Is it 800? So 2026 we should plan a great big. In May, it's generally in May making, I don't know if it's Whitsun holiday or something like that, a weekend, and have a big pageant and everyone get all the schools and get everything involved. Because if you look at some of the old photographs of 1926, it was quite a day.
Photographs, I think.
So I think that'd be something, and it'd take quite a bit of working out and everything, and asking. I don't know if it has to be led by the town council, or we could just set a committee up, 2026 committee, and get volunteers in.
A working group.
A working group.
And you could get your fire engine.
Yeah.
Fire engine.
Yeah, always.
No problem.
But it'd be nice to recreate that, wouldn't it?
Yes,
800 years as a mayor of Sandwich.
It would, because yes.
Yeah.
So the committee are asked to approve the current plan for the museum's forward plan. Are we all in favour of the current forward plan?
Yeah.
Please show.
Yeah.
In favour, yeah. Okay, that's passed. Okay. And then item number 7 is the volunteer policy. And this is members to receive a report regarding the museum's volunteer policy, and a decision is required on this. This attachment 3A and 3B. Not sure sure hopefully you've all had time to read this. And 3A suggested that the museum adopts STBF's volunteer policy rather than having a separate policy, as much of the information with these documents will be the same. Therefore, a short instruction has been written for all the relevant information to the museum, such as statement of purpose, mission statement. All relevant policies and information will then be included in the appendices. For the purposes of the committee reviewing this document, the STBF volunteer policy has been attached. However, the other items in the appendices have not been included. All the documents that will be contained in the appendices are required to be adopted by STBF. Therefore, they have already been approved. And the committee are asked to recommend the approval of the museum's volunteer policies to the trustees. So I didn't see who went first, so our
I
ladies.
think it was Councillor Anderson.
Councillor Ripley. Oh. Let's start with Councillor Ripley.
It's about 3.1 about following policies and procedures, volunteer policy, including social media policy. And I would like all volunteers to sign up to this, have to sign up to this, because there has been some obvious examples in the past where very unpleasant things have been posted on social media, and I don't think that's at all.
So I'll just pass over to the museum coordinator on this one.
Obviously, volunteers have to agree in writing to the policy, volunteer policy, which includes all of those items. So if they were to not abide by any things in that, or not sign it, then they're considered to be not doing, like, volunteering basically. So if you want them all to sign a separate agreement to that, that's fine, but I would say that signing the volunteer policy has said I'm agreeing to all of these things.
Are you saying that all the volunteers have signed up to this already?
No, I'm saying that when this updated policy is in place, it will be communicated to all the volunteers, and they will be required to respond to me in writing that they agree to it.
Okay.
And that obviously then, if they breach something within those policies, that is then, something that we would discuss and could end up result in terminating their position. That's how it would go.
Councillor Anderson.
Yes, well, I was going to ask a very similar question about whether they actually physically have to sign up. But I'm also concerned that under 16 in the volunteer policy, it says the role and replacement of volunteer may be terminated by STBF or the volunteer with 1 week's notice or immediately where inappropriate behaviour has occurred. Doesn't quite make sense. In all cases, the volunteer is entitled to an explanation of the action taken. I just wondered what the process is, because I think to leave it to a single person, a museum coordinator or somebody else, it's awkward. And so I think we really do need to spell out exactly what the process is should a volunteer breach this volunteer policy.
So that is the policy, I believe you're reading from the policy that is, so that's already adopted by the Town Council, the Tollbridge Fund.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
not what I've written, and
Yeah.
so if there was an issue with a museum volunteer, the way I imagine it would go is that I would discuss with the town clerk that situation, and we would probably sit down together with that volunteer,
Yeah.
I imagine.
Yeah.
We're following that policy because obviously it covers the Tollbridge Fund, and the museum sits underneath the Tollbridge Fund. So I think the town clerk could probably ask.
I'm talking from having been involved in the voluntary sector when I was on retirement. One would normally a member of this committee. So that might be something worth considering, although you may think that if you have a member of this committee, if the person has been attacking the town council, that that's not appropriate. But I do think we do need to consider exactly what this process is, and also what the appeals process is. I mean, it doesn't say there's an appeal, but it says the volunteer is entitled to an explanation. But natural justice would dictate that there is an appeals procedure.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't ordinarily have an appeal process because that's why you've got the policy, and I think it's very clear in the policy what is expected of someone that's volunteering, and so if they fall short of what's expected, then that is their choice, and the council have these policies in place. It's the same for officers, we're here and we know what's expected of us. If we step outside that, it's very clear, there are consequences. So I think that's why it's very important to have this adopted, so that everybody, volunteers knows what's expected of them, and it's written so that everybody can consider whether they want to volunteer under those policies. It's their choice.
Yes, but there will be breaches. It's inevitable. It's a very tempting world out there.
But
and I mean, it might not be a social media problem. It might be a theft problem, or a lack of care of documents problem, or something. And but I just would like that's the responsibility of the council, obviously, to make a decision about this procedure.
I would have thought it would have come under our employment policies, because volunteers are just unpaid employees. So it would be on a similar basis as that.
Can I correct you there, that you need to be very specific, they are not employees, I'm sorry, you need to be very specific, they are not employees, otherwise you open up a completely different can of worms.
They are covered by the same policies.
But they are not employees.
As I'm not saying they're paid employees.
It's the word employee.
Chair, I didn't know all the years I've been involved on the council, there's only been one volunteer that got suspended, told not to come anymore, and he was down in the museum, and someone said, can we see the mayor's parlour?
Yes.
And he come up and he set all the alarms off.
Yep.
And so he immediately said, we don't need your services anymore, because he had to go with the previous museum, but he didn't query it, because he knew he'd done wrong.
Yeah. But he's back as a volunteer.
Yeah, he is a volunteer, but he is back now, because it's sort of
Yes.
realised all the alarms went off.
Could I just add in, the volunteers don't have access to the keys that open those doors anymore.
No.
So that cannot happen again.
But there are all sorts of other things.
Yeah.
But as Councillor Anderson said, I mean, possibly we can bring forward the documentation that's required that the volunteers have to sign off to this committee, perhaps, and bring this onto the agenda next time.
Well, but this is it, isn't it? This is what
it's
they have to
agreed.
sign.
But if you wanted clarification,
No, that's not clarification.
Councillor Anderson is asking for clarification of the
About-
process.
About
Process.
About the process.
With appeal.
Indeed. So that needs to be brought forward, because we haven't got that in front of us. So is that correct?
Well, I don't want to delay things.
Not this evening, obviously. So, but that could be brought forward.
It could be an amendment to, that we accept this policy, and hopefully the council will pass all the other policies at the council meeting on Monday, because they're all coming to the council, aren't they? Or to
This-
fund,
this-
but in the
yes.
total. But that at some point we consider a proper process for dismissing a volunteer. Because I think we're laying ourselves open to difficulty.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So if you're not happy with what is here, then we can say that we approve everything apart from, say, item 3.0, if you wanted.
We could add into those policies, or I can make it, because there's procedures in there as well, in terms of collections information that is useful for volunteers to know that we have that there's another document that is added in as an item in the appendices that is the procedure. And I think I briefly mentioned to the town clerk about a kind of 3-strike procedure, something to that effect. So perhaps that can be come as a draft, but it will be added into as an appendix item.
Yes.
And that needs to be brought forward to this
Yeah, that's fine.
committee if that's okay. Councillor Black?
Yeah, I was just going to say that we know there are going to be some delicacies around this, and one or two people are going to push back, and not just people that we know are occasionally very self-motivated. I'm just wondering how much time you're allowing yourself to talk to people on this one, really, because some people will see it as a infringement of the whole ethos of volunteering, and I think, you know, I'd suggest this needs to be done at a measured pace, not just and I'm sure you won't just going to dump it, say sign here or else kind of thing, but I would suggest that this needs a little bit of course, because there'll be some people who have been volunteering for a long time and think, well, why are you asking me to do all of this lot? And it's the sensitivity. So there will be some who on principle no.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I think one reason for it is through accreditation we have to have updated policies and things like that. So that is a good explanation for updating things. I think also perhaps the past policies don't include the information or this extra information, for even, for example, not any of the town council policies, but the process of object entry. If someone comes in with an object donation, that would be in with the appendices to explain what you should do, and they're agreeing to that because it's really important for the museum procedure that they agree to that. So I think there's lots of reasons why it's not just to kind of deal with any other issues that might be of concern, and perhaps if it's approved, I can explain that to the volunteers and provide them with it and ask them for their comments and kind of consult them. I think usually I would involve them in decisions, even if I have an idea of how that might work in any way. It's useful to ask, because sometimes, you know, they might have something that's helpful that they think would be included, or they might question something, and then I can always bring those comments to a meeting and talk about how we might respond, or if it's an easy response, I can go ahead and do that. But I think that's a good idea.
You're clearly aware of the sensitivities, and you would be, and I'm reassured about that. Thank you.
I think we'll leave that with the museum coordinator. So the recommendation here is that the committee are asked to recommend the approval of the museum volunteers policy to the trustee. I'm prepared to propose this.
Yeah.
Councillor Franklin, second that. All those in favour?
Yeah.
Thank you very much, and that item is passed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just clarify? So the meeting on Monday, are members happy for this to go to the trustee on Monday?
I think similar points might be made.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think.
Okay, thank you.
And then item number 8, D-Day exhibition. Members to receive a report regarding the museum's temporary exhibition commemorating D-Day, and this is attachment number 4. And I'd just like to give thanks to the museum coordinator for all the efforts that she's putting in on this, and to say that I think I'm looking forward to it wholeheartedly, and I think it would be an absolutely excellent thing that it will actually show that the town council is stepping forward to make these efforts for this celebration. So that's really good. Did anybody else? Councillor Black?
Yes, I think there's some excellent stuff in, and yes, the Mulberry Harbours are something that a lot of people don't know about the role of Richborough Port in that. I was a little bit surprised there's nothing on, is it the Buffs, the East Kent Regiment? Because that is the local regiment. And the Paras and the and Airborne, yeah, but I'm not quite sure what the particular connection to Sandwich is.
There's quite a strong connection with Parachute Regiment, because Mr. Carpenter had a shop over there. He had osier beds up the Dover Road where the Dell Farm shop is, and he used to make wicker baskets which were dropped with parachutes, you know, with ammunition and food in.
Oh, yeah, the canisters.
So,
Well, just, yeah, okay, thank you, that's helpful. I didn't realise that. But I just surprised that the Buffs aren't in yet.
Yeah, so the reason it's because there was a resident of Sandwich who was part of the parachute regiment.
So
So
she's the
we've
corporal.
been doing research into him, and the reason that I spoke to them is because we don't have a huge amount of content or kind of images, for example. So I spoke to them about images that they have access to, like an archive of photos that they could give us of the events of D-Day.
Yeah.
That's more why they were involved. They've got quite a lot of useful images.
I just suspect you may get quite a lot of local people saying, well, what about the local regiment?
I will, so Buffs
It
collection
is the Buffs, I think, yeah.
Yes,
Correct.
yes.
Yeah.
The Buffs, their collection, I believe, unless it's changed, it might be, I think it might be at a national museum now. It was in Canterbury, but I'll see if I can get in touch.
Yeah.
I don't know.
do you think Dover Council?
I'm not sure if the
Yeah.
Princess of Wales Royal Regiment have anything, but I can easily contact them. It's fine.
That's correct. Councillor Anderson?
Yes, I mean,
Steady Buffs.
just off the top of my head, I mean, RAF Manston, as I understand it, it was the Canadian Air Force that was located there, is that right? I think it was. And I'm just wondering if there might be something from, because there is a Manston archive, isn't there? There's a Manston museum,
Yeah, there is.
and
There is
whether
some
there
museum.
might be some stuff that's relevant to Sandwich.
Mm.
And whether they were involved with D-Day, who knows? I don't know.
There were Canadian, I think there were Canadian stuff. That does ring a bell. I'll see if I can get in touch
It
with
would be
someone.
quite
Thank you,
interesting.
that's
You know,
useful.
Yeah, there was a lot of Canadians, because when on our farm we had Canadian cat planners on the farm, and the actually officers lodged in the farmhouse with my mum. And the woods along by, as you go to Dover, the woods on the left, that was full of cat planners, and it was all Canadian
Yes,
cat regiment.
and some of them were housed at the Kitchener camp because
Yeah.
some of the men who'd been at the Kitchener camp, when they came back, remarked that it was full of Canadians.
Yeah, I think there's a tail plane up at Manston with a German swastika on it, which they shot down because my brother got it and he donated it to Manston Museum.
Right.
Off a fighter plane, I believe.
That's excellent then. So the committee's asked to receive and note the information regarding the museum's D-Day exhibition. So if everybody's happy with the work that's done, all those in favour of the report? Thank you very much. That's excellent. And then item number 9 is a loan to the University of Kent, and this is
I have to say the list of things that they want to borrow.
unusual. This is
40,000 herrings.
members to receive a report regarding a loan to the University of Kent. A decision is required, and this is attachment number 5.
Is that Kippers?
I don't know what they are. They look like aliens, I think.
Salt herring, I presume.
Dread, they're dead now anyway. So,
The fish that were fished here.
I assume they were found up at the bay. I can't say for sure, but I think that's the same. Most of the shells and the corals and things like that were found in Sandwich Bay and ended up in the museum. And they have a section related to natural history. So a student came from, there's only 2 students, and she came to visit and had a look at what we had. And she thought they would be useful for that section. So
There must be.
I'm happy to help them with their projects.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody's got any comments. If not, then the committee is asked to approve the loan of the above items to the University of Kent. So I propose that we do make that loan. Is everybody in favour of making the loan to the University of Kent? Thank you very much. So that's been passed. Thank you.
Would be a public exhibition at the uni, you know, could we go and visit it?
Yeah, you can, yeah.
Oh, it'd be interesting, wouldn't it?
Then item number 10 is the AIM hire, where members are to receive a report regarding the AIM hire project, and this is attachment number 6.
Well, that's a Zoom meeting, isn't it?
Members are aware that the museum is working with a consultant as part of the AIM hire scheme. An initial meeting with the consultant Marilyn Scott has now taken place, and having received most of the skills audits, she's now working on her analysis. Marilyn has passed on her thanks for the assistance she has received so far, and is looking forward to arranging a training session. The committee will be contacted in the coming weeks about potential dates and times for this training session, and the committee are asked to receive the update on the AIM hire project. Is everybody happy with the update that's been provided?
Yeah, I think it's quite good, isn't it? Training all helps, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I'm a bit rubbish on computers, luckily I've got a secretary. That'll be out. Yeah,
I'm
that's a good thing.
looking forward to it myself, so
Yeah.
that should be quite good. So all those in favour of this report,
Yeah.
please. Thank you very much, and that's been passed. Item number 11 is date of the next meeting, and that is to be confirmed by the town clerk.
Well, the trustee, hopefully they will
Oh,
adopt the
it was-
schedule of meetings on Monday.
Indeed, sorry.
That's
Thank you
fine.
for that.
Thank you.
That's indeed correct. So, thank you very much for your input this evening, and a number of subjects. It's good to get everything sorted out, and the museum is a big part of the Guildhall and the town, so it's very important that we do get these things right. So hopefully all the decisions we've made today are the right ones to help both the museum and the museum coordinator take things forward. Thank you very much, everybody. I close the meeting.
Close it.